Hello, my name is Darren Thomas and I'm the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to take a look at, polynomial multiplication with radical expressions. So let's begin. So as you are probably already familiar from previous videos, if you've been participating in this series, you kind of know what a polynomial is. So here's an example of a polynomial. So the square root of 6, and then we have our parentheses, 1 plus 3 times the square root of 6. So this is a polynomial, and of course the square root of 6 and the square root of 6, both of those are examples of radical expressions. Now, in order to solve this problem, you basically just use what we call the distributive property. And so the distributive property is where I'm going to distribute the 6, or the square root of 6, excuse me, for each term inside the parentheses. So right here, and then of course right here. So when I do that, I get the following. The square root of 6 times 1 is going to be the square root of 6 plus 3 times the square root of 36. Now, why is it that? Because essentially, again, to make things as clear as possible, when you have the same radical, if you will, so in this case the square root of 6, you just multiply straight across. Now, again, when you have the square root of 6, another way of saying this is 1 times the square root of 6. And so 1 times 3 is going to be 3, and then square root of 6 times square root of 6 is going to be square root of 36. That's what we got here. Now it's just a matter that we got to this step right here of just simplifying the term. So we really got to deal with this guy right here. That's where the problem is at. So we got the square root of 6 plus 3. Now the square root of 36 is going to be 6. So I'll put this in parentheses for the sake of clarity. And that leads to our final answer of square root of 6 plus 18, like so. So that's how you deal with that one. Not too complicated, very, very doable. Let's do a slightly different example here. So now in this situation, what we have is as follows. We have 5 times the square root of 3 minus the square root of 7. And then in our next set of parentheses, we have the square root of 3 plus 2 times the square root of 7. That's what we have. Now to complete this, we just, again, you can use the FOIL property or whatever you want to call it, but it basically, you multiply all the terms together. That's how you do that. Again, there's nothing new here. So our first one that we're going to deal with is going to be, of course, 5 times square root of 3 times square root of 3. Now again, just pretend for the sake of consistency that there's a 1 here. And so we have 5 times square root of 3 times square root of 3 is going to be 5 times 3 because the square root cancels out there. Next, we're going to deal with, let's see here, 5. So we're going to have the 5 here. We're going to deal with this guy next over here, like so. And so 5 times 2 is going to be positive 10, so plus 10. And then square root of 3 times square root of 7 is going to be the square root of 21, like so. Almost done. And so now we will multiply these two terms right here. So square root of minus square root of 7 minus square root of 3, that's going to be minus the square root of 21 because we got the little minus sign right here. I'm going to delete that now. And then the last thing we're going to do, our last term, is going to be square root of 7 times square root of 7. So again, our math is a 1 here. So we're going to have plus 2 times the square root of 49, which of course is just going to be 7. Like so. That's what we got. Now, so let's see if we can combine like terms here. So to make this as simple as possible, 5 times 3 is 15. And 2 times 7 is going to be 14. Well, that should be a negative, excuse me. Let me deal with this first. This should be a negative sign right here. So we got minus 14 like so. And that's going to simplify to 1. Now, let's see what else do we have here. 5 times 3, 5 times 3, 7, yeah, 14, yeah. 1 plus, okay. And then we have, what's left here is this stuff in the middle right here. So we have this information right here that we have to deal with. Now 10 times the square root of 21 minus the square root of 21. Again, using a little bit of imagination, just imagine there's a 1 right here in front of this, and notice we have the same radical here, so we can just subtract like normal. So eventually what's going to happen is that we're going to have 10 minus 1 times the square root of 21. And so that's going to come out to, if you don't mind, 9. So I got to put a plus here. 9 times the square root of 21. And we're done with this example. So what we did was first we combined the like terms, the terms without the radical expressions. So 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 7 is 14. Now there's a minus sign right here, so there's a minus sign right here. That's why it's a minus 14. 15 minus 4 is 1, and then 10 minus 1 here is 9, and we still have the square root of 21. So this is our answer. Let's do, I think, yes, one more, and then we'll be done. So this one is going to involve using cubes, and then also we're going to throw in some variables here to add some variety to how you want to deal with these things. So here in this example, we have the cube root of x minus 2 times the cube root of x minus 3. Alright, so again, we just do our same process as before. So I'll just multiply these guys first. So I got the same base, so it's going to be cube root of x squared, like so. Do another one. How about this guy right here? The cube root of x times negative 3, so that's going to be minus 3 times the cube root of x, like so. Do another one. Minus 2 in the cube root of x, so I'm going to get minus 2 here times the cube root of x. And then our last guy that we have to deal with here is going to be minus 2 times minus 3, that's going to be plus 6. So all we got to do now is deal with the like terms. So minus 3, take away minus 2, that's going to be very, very simple here. It's going to be minus 5 times the cube root of x. And then, of course, we bring down the other terms. So cube root of x squared and also plus 6. So this is our answer right here. There's not much else that we can do in this particular situation. The cube root of x squared minus 5 times the cube root of x plus 6, and that is our answer. So let me go back and kind of recap what we did here, and we will see if we can make sense of this. So basically what we were doing in this video was we were dealing with how to deal with polynomials and multiplying with radical expressions. So basically you use the distributive property to distribute whatever is inside or outside the parentheses as appropriate. And then after that, you simplify accordingly. So in the first example, you can see we distributed the square root of 6. And as we did that, we were able to simplify. So the square root of 6 times the square root of 6 was 36. Of course, when you square root that, you get 6. 3 times 6 is 18. That 3 was here the whole time. And then the final answer was the square root of 6 plus 18. With the second example, the difference is that we had some constants in front of the radical expression, if you will. But the same idea applied. You use the distributive property, the FOIL method, if that's what works for you, or however you want to deal with it, and then you combine the like terms. And then the last one, the only difference here was that we had variables here, and we also dealt with cube roots instead of square roots. And again, the same process is used here. You distribute the terms, make sure that the radicals have the same index, or the radical, if you will, in the same index, of course. And then you can combine like terms as appropriate at the end. So I hope that this video was useful for you and clear, and that you were able to understand what was happening here. My name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Thank you for watching. Take care.